name is Mary DeVilliers. My name is Mary DeVilliers, and I serve as the Director of International Admissions for the University of Notre Dame. I have worked in my role for over 8 years and have come every year, minus the pandemic, to the Philippines. And this year will be no different. I will be coming to the Philippines in August. I'm very excited to have 2 current students joining us today. So if we could start with Cecilia, then Daniela, if you could share your name, your major, the year you are at Notre Dame, where you live on campus, any activities that you are involved in.
Hi everyone, I'm Cecilia and I'm a rising junior, class of 2024. I am double majoring in economics and English, as well as a minor in computing and digital technologies. On campus, I live in Lewis Hall, which is the all-female dorm, and I'm involved in several clubs such as the Filipino American Club, the Asian American Club, as well as a service club called MedLife. Over the summer, I spent it doing a study abroad program with Notre Dame in London, and it was really fun. I'm glad to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Bartolome. You can call me Dani. I am a rising sophomore, majoring in marketing and minoring in collaborative innovation. And I live in Pascagoula East Hall. And I'm involved with the Student International Business Council. And I'm super excited to share my experiences this year.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can fully introduce you to the University of Notre Dame. And we're going to allow for questions at the end for all of us. And we're really looking forward to those. Okay, so welcome to the University of Notre Dame. We are a beautiful campus, as you can see. It's sort of a balance between nature and amazing French architecture. All of our buildings are very cohesive. We have a really great student body that comes to Notre Dame from all 50 US states and more than 80 different countries. And our Filipino family on campus is pretty well represented as well. We are a Catholic university that is Research 1 intensive, so that's the same level as universities such as University of Michigan or University of Illinois. But we're a small university in comparison to those big universities. We have 8,500 undergraduate students and only about 3,300 graduate students. I share both of those numbers because I really want to emphasize the way that the undergraduates are the focus at Notre Dame. Our faculty and our staff are very receptive to our students, and I'll talk a little bit more about the way that they interact with students in the classroom. But please know that there is a huge diversity of backgrounds, ideals, aspirations, beliefs at our university, and that all of our students are really kind of glued together by the mission of the university. Our special mission is to be a force for good in the world. And this is something that gets reinforced in and out of the classroom and by our students and the service that they do, the way that they are cultivating their talents so that when they leave our institution as a graduate, they will be that force for good in their career or in their community. And speaking of community, our residential life is a really big part of life at Notre Dame. As you can see here, a big percentage of our students are living in our residence halls. Notre Dame does the dorms a little different in that all of our dorms are single gender, meaning we have all male dorms and all female dorms. The dorms are sort of like a house system. They have a mascot. They have a lot of traditions and pride. They compete against one another in inter-hall athletics, which has about 40 different sports. And there's also a form of government within the halls. Every dorm has a chapel. So going to mass on Sundays is a big tradition within a dorm, but also you were able to go to any of the chapels on the campus. And then just, it really creates a strong sense of belonging for our students. I'm gonna have Daniela and then Cecilia share a little bit about their particular dorm in terms of the mascot and one of the traditions that they have.
So I live in Pascagoula East. So our mascot is the Pyro or Pyros, and we're basically like flames. And so I think our dorms like school spirit is really intense. We all dress up in red and we have like these fire hats and like all these flags, and it's really amazing because I got super close to all my hallmates, everyone around me, even from different floors. Like I'm friends with a lot of, so I was a freshman last year, so I was friends with a lot of sophomores and juniors and seniors, and they really come together all as one and unite through that like pyro spirit. We have Snaza, which is like a silent auction that they do every Christmas season, and it's basically an auction where you don't talk and all the funds go to specific beneficiaries for the year. And we have a lot of donors that like do different cool things, like someone could go golfing with some alumni. It's like really interesting things that are being auctioned up there. And so we do a lot of different things. And we're even planning like a new food concessionaire within our dorm. And you get to really participate, buy merch, join interhall sports. Like I did tennis, and a lot of my friends did like flag football. So you could do within a team, or sorry about that, but within a team or individual sports. And it's a good way for you to participate in sports in case you're not in the varsity team. So I love my dorm so much.
Yeah, adding on to that, I think that every dorm definitely has a strong sense of community. For example, I live in Lewis Hall, and we do this thing called Lewis House of Pancakes, or LHOP. And it's one of our charity events in which we all pitch in to make pancakes, bacon, basically breakfast for dinner, and we sell it to the entire school and raise a lot of funds to donate to our chosen charity. Besides the sport, there's also a lot of other ways to bond. For example, we just have random movie nights as a hall. I also love to bake, so I bake with a lot of my friends, and there's always just something to do with everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you both for sharing. Outside of the dorms, there's also 400 clubs, organizations, activities. I know Daniela and Cecilia have just shared about their activities, but Daniela, you mentioned an organization on campus that's quite popular, SIBC. Could you tell the students a little bit more about SIBC?
So yes, so SIBC is basically the Business Council of Notre Dame, where a lot of students join the different branches or divisions of that club. So there's like marketing, there's finance, accounting, consulting, the list goes on, and it's all business related, and there's a few STEM ones, I believe. And so what you basically do is work with a team and do a lot of research on specific companies that Notre Dame partners with. So for example, I was able to go to Procter and Gamble to present for the marketing division, and that was such a good experience, especially because we got to talk to the product managers, and just all the people involved with the creation process, and they gave us a lot of feedback and even considered our ideas for our multiple suggestions. And so it's a good way to get like good business experience early on and to make those connections.
Great. And then Cecilia, you mentioned a couple of cultural organizations that you're involved in. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the events that they have put on?
Yeah, so for example, the Asian American Association, they do a retreat for all the incoming freshmen, and we just do a whole like Asian retreat, and it's great to bond over food, make new friends, and it's where a lot of people meet new people. There's also a Filipino show called Fiestang. I actually participated in it, in which I played an OPM song. I don't know if you guys know Mundo, but it was really fun just sharing um, a lot of the Asian community with everyone in Notre Dame.
Yes. So just imagine all of these clubs, all of these organizations, in addition to a really vibrant athletic scene, as well as a really vibrant performing arts scene. So just that all to say is that there is no one kind of Notre Dame student, and there is tons for you to do. We may not be in a major city within the US, but our students sort of create their own amazing city filled with tons of things to do every day of the week. I'm going to move a little bit more into talking about the really strong identity of Notre Dame as a Catholic university. We are Catholic with a capital C at Notre Dame, as well as the lowercase c, which means universal. So at Notre Dame, many students ascribe to the Catholic faith, and the Catholic faith is very well represented on the campus. We have a beautiful basilica, and as I mentioned before, every dorm has a chapel. Participation in Mass is not required, but Mass is offered every day of the week for those students who want to partake. We also have lots of students who identify as other faith backgrounds or of no faith background, and they also are given many opportunities to engage spiritually through our campus ministry office. Campus ministry also will provide transportation to different houses of worship for those students that want that. At Notre Dame, the universal sense of the Catholic faith in terms of all students at our university, the way that that plays out is particularly in the way that you are going to be formed by your education. So at Notre Dame, we really believe that your activities, your education, your interactions with the people in your dorms or in the clubs that you're a member of, all of that is going to have a transformative effect on you, that you yourself are going to grow in self-awareness. And through your classes, you're really going to be challenged to develop ethical decision-making, moral reasoning, critical thinking, presentation skills, and all of that is going to impart wisdom as much as expertise in your field. So imagine the strength of you as a leader when you graduate from a university that is as fully invested in you learning about yourself as much as learning about your different subjects that you're studying. We're also really proud of the fact that our students are very active in community service. 80% of students participate either locally or nationally, and some of our students are even going global with their service. Daniela, have you been involved in service at Notre Dame during your 2 years?
No, I have not yet.
Okay, Cecilia, have you done service through your clubs?
Yeah, I have. So I'm part of this, I'm in the board of this club called MedLife. And during the pandemic, when we couldn't specifically, go into physical contact with service, we used social media to raise funds for soup kitchens in South America, specifically Lima. And it was just great finding different ways to help out with service.
Yes. So during the time at the university, service is a really big part of a lot of different elements like our dorms. And actually, one of the biggest fundraisers on our campus is a fun tradition tied into football called the shirt. So whenever you watch the Notre Dame football game on TV and you see everyone's wearing like a similar color throughout the stadium, more often than not, they're wearing that year's shirt. And all of the proceeds from the sales of the shirt in the bookstore go to a fund that the students then designate for different charities and organizations that they're working with. So it's just a really fun way to do service, but embracing a Notre Dame tradition as well. Then moving into talking about the classroom experience and life at Notre Dame as a student. So I know many of you may have multiple things that you are interested in. Some of you may be very sure about what you want to major in, and some of you may have not very strong ideas at all about what you want to major in. All of that works for us at Notre Dame. Please be assured. At Notre Dame, we have a really strong advising structure that you start to interact with before you arrive at the university. You will have an assigned first-year advisor, and this is the person that is going to start to map out what your years might look like at Notre Dame based on the interests that you share, and fully understanding that those interests could change or you could add new things to it as you encounter different subjects and different experiences. The way that it works in your first year is that you will be taking classes within our core curriculum, which is our general requirements for graduation. And there are 9 different ways of knowing, so they cross a huge spectrum of subjects. So you'll be able to take classes that speak to the things that you're interested in that also are going to satisfy those requirements. And then if you are pretty sure about what you want to study, you can also start to take the classes that are forming the foundation of your major. So that way you are really on track, or you're getting time to explore lots of different areas to really firm up what you want to study. Students don't declare their major formally until the end of the first year, and you even have flexibility in the second year if you're still a little unsure. All of our majors are divided into different colleges. So we have our College of Arts and Letters, we have our College of Science, we have our College of Engineering, we have the Mendoza College of Business. We also have the School of Architecture, which has 1 major, architecture. And then now we have an undergraduate major within the Keough School of Global Affairs in Global Affairs. So imagine that it is the gateway for you to become that leader on the global level in any field that you want to pursue, but also with an eye toward the integral development of human beings. So at Notre Dame, you can double major across the colleges, you can do majors with minors, you can do supplemental majors. So there's really a great way to mix and match the things that you're doing. Daniela and Cecilia, if you guys, maybe Cecilia first and then Daniela, if you want to share a little bit about the areas that you're studying.
Yeah, so I'm double majoring in economics and English with a minor in computing and digital technologies. And my schedule works out really well in that I usually have 2 econ specific classes, 2 English specific classes, and then 1 computing class. And it's really great because you can major in like the most random things, but everything comes together because of how well-rounded the Notre Dame curriculum is. Also, my advisors were super helpful in helping me plan a schedule so that I could also fit in study abroad time, as well as graduate when I intend to. Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with you. The advisors are super helpful. So I came into Notre Dame thinking that I would be a marketing major, and I still currently am. But then I had no idea about the minors, and so I was telling my advisor and just talking about how I like doing like crafty, creative things, and she kept suggesting like different majors, and that's how I found the collaborative innovation major. And I'm planning to take my first class for that this semester, and so I'm super excited. And I just love how the first year advisors really try to get to know you, your interests, and then suggest more things, because there are so many things you can study and there are so many people that have a wide range of like interests. I know people that have majors from different schools, and that's like really cool because not all schools, you can't always do that in all schools. So
Yeah, great. I'm so excited for both of you. Like hearing those majors makes me want to go back to school. um, Thank you for sharing that. So as you can see, in the first year, you're going to have that flexibility and time. And then when you're in the classroom, our classrooms are really student-centered and with a heavy emphasis on discussion. As you can see from the numbers here, majority of those are going to be fewer than 20 students. All of your classes are taught by our faculty members, and 90% of those faculty members are tenured faculty. When we say tenured, it's kind of like the varsity team. They're very talented, they have years of experience, they've maybe published, they've presented numerous times. They're really considered leaders in their field. So just imagine that majority of your classes will be taught directly by these really accomplished individuals. And they come to Notre Dame specifically because they know that they're going to be required to teach undergraduate classes. And that is something that they're interested in doing. Daniela or Cecilia, would either of you like to share about, maybe a relationship with a professor that you really have enjoyed, or a class that you took that really was very electric for you because of the professor teaching it?
I could start. So I actually took, I'm sure a few of you in this presentation are in the different strand systems of the Philippines. And so I was in the humanities strand, and that's a very big shift from like humanities to the College of Business. And so um, I had a pretty difficult time adjusting to calculus, but I really built like this amazing relationship with my calculus teacher. I was able to go to office hours a lot, and these it was a group of graduate students that were teaching along with like this very esteemed professor, and so it was super interesting having like an older perspective and a bunch of younger perspectives that were teaching you in different like manners. And I also really got close to um, my social science teacher. So I took this sociology class called School to Prison Pipeline, and it was the best class I've ever taken in my life. Our teacher was our teacher made us read some of his own, like his very own research, and I thought that was really interesting because we were able to ask all these questions, and he really tried to design the class in a way that would cater to the interests of the students. Like we had a lot of football players in my class, for example, and so he kept talking about football and how it relates to the education system, and it just he really caught my attention in so many lessons, and I was just like the entire time just amazed and in wonder the entire time, because these professors are so amazing, so smart, and just so approachable because you could talk to them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Danny. Like, I think that even in the slightly bigger classes, for example, my intermediate micro econ class is a very big class, as well as my statistics class. I wasn't afraid to approach my professor because we would have these things called office hours in which you can just hop in and talk to them anytime, and they're always willing to help you. I felt very lost at first with statistics, especially on a much higher level. And as long as I went to office hours, he always was there to guide me. If he had extra tips or practice questions, he would assign them to me, and he helped me like boost my grade, and I was no longer intimidated by the class. And there's also a lot of very intimate close discussion classes. Like Mary mentioned earlier, my English classes are very discussion based, and you get so close to your classmates because it's very introspective, in which you can share your opinions without feeling judged at all, and just analyze this wonderful novel and give your own opinion about it. And so it's great, you get a mix of everything.
Great, thank you both for sharing. Another element of life at Notre Dame is research. And research takes place in many different formats, and it takes place in all of the areas of study at Notre Dame. It's very easy for undergraduate students to get involved as early as their freshman year by simply connecting with a professor, even if it's not their own professor, and getting involved with faculty-led research. We also have a center called the Flatley Center, and it's called CUSE for short. It has a really long name. And CUSE helps students to learn how to make grant applications for them to then receive money to do their own self-directed research anywhere in the world. So we've had students who've gone to the UK to do economic research. We've had a student who went to Kolkata, India to study the effects on the environment from a major festival time in the city. It just really runs the whole spectrum. And in addition to research that students can do, for students who are more entrepreneurial or innovative, we do have our Idea Center. The Idea Center is a makerspace, but it's also a hub for a lot of startups that those founders are also mentors to our students. So it's a really great bridge for students between their education and developing their product ideas or developing their social entrepreneurship ideas and then bringing them to the market. And it ties in really nicely with some of our programs for study outside of the campus, which I'll touch on in just a bit. But please know that no matter what your passion may be, there are many ways to engage with that in a hands-on learning environment. And we're really, really proud of the fact that our faculty are just as involved as our staff when it comes to fostering that for our students. So, study abroad. I know for all of you that would be coming to Notre Dame, you would already be studying abroad in the United States. But as Cecilia has mentioned, study abroad is a big part of life at Notre Dame. As you can see, a huge part of the community does take advantage of study abroad, and we're one of the largest sending institutions by percentage of students going abroad. We have our own study abroad campuses in London, Dublin, Rome, and Jerusalem, but then we have partnerships with leading universities all around the world. So for example, when Notre Dame students study abroad in Singapore, they go to NUS. If they're going to Beijing, they could potentially go to Peking University. So really, there's a whole bunch of options for students to pick from. And you can go for a semester, you can go for a full year, or you can do like Cecilia did, where she took advantage of the summer to go to London. Cecilia, do you want to talk a little bit about the London Center?
Yeah, so I actually just recently came back from my study abroad in London. It was about 67 weeks long, and you can take all sorts of classes that can help. Like, for example, I did this amazing English class in which it was called Deciphering the Urban Story. And it was basically like all the detective stuff. So Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. We retraced their steps, we like closely analyzed the text, and there was just so much to do. I also took this theology class in Islam. So don't think that if you go to Notre Dame, you're only gonna be, or you only have to learn like Catholic or Christian religion, but you can be as open-minded as you want to be. So I took a class in Islam, I visited a mosque. It was great because I was in a global setting and I just took advantage of that. I also did a summer internship there with a startup. So you can really pack as much as you want into that study abroad program as long as you could manage your time well. And it was amazing because I basically felt like I almost owned the city because I was able to take the tube on my own. I would walk around and just know my way. So Notre Dame did a really good job in study abroad.
Thank you so much. Other programs that we have are based in the US, but they are based quite a ways away from campus. So one of those would be our Silicon Valley semester program. And this is out in Palo Alto, California. Our students that go out to Silicon Valley are going to be taking a 20-hour-a-week internship in addition to their classes. They interact a lot with our Notre Dame alumni clubs in the area. And they also do trips to places like Lake Tahoe. So it's a really great way to jumpstart your career if you're in any sort of field that would have relevance within that Silicon Valley ecosphere. The same goes for our program in Washington, D.C. So same idea. The students go out to DC, they have a 20-hour-a-week internship, lots of networking with our alumni and just in general because that's how DC is. And then you're also taking classes both in California and in DC on site at different organizations and companies and learning directly from the leaders of those organizations. So really amazing ways for you to jumpstart your career, but also to get a feel for what life will be like once you graduate and get involved in your field. So we really encourage you to check those out to see how you can enrich your time at the university. I also want to talk a little bit about how we prepare you for what's next once you graduate from Notre Dame. We do a really good job of providing you access to our Career Development Center as early as your freshman year. And the Career Development Center has numerous resources and advisors. They're going to help develop resumes, cover letters. They're going to help you learn how to interview competitively. They also have databases that will allow you to search for internship opportunities and job opportunities, in addition to all of the major fairs and smaller industry-oriented events that they have. So really providing you with a lot of tools to build yourself up professionally. For those of you who are thinking about medical school or dental school, you can see here that we have really high placement rates. So for medical school, it's 87% admission, which is double the national average. For dental, it's 90%, law, 90%. So no matter what you want to study when you leave in Notre Dame, you're going going to find that regardless of what your major is, you're going to have advising to make sure that you are fully prepared to be a competitive applicant. And when you leave Notre Dame, we always say you don't leave the university because our alumni clubs are very global. We have more than 270 around the world, including one in the Philippines. And I know, Cecilia, when you took a gap year, you were very involved with the club in Manila. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the activities that you guys had, even with the lockdown?
Oh yeah. I didn't take a gap year. I took a gap semester while doing some online, but basically that. The Philippine club was very nice to me. They took me in and gave me they offered me a bunch of internships that I could potentially apply to, where they could recommend me. And they also did a lot of things, and we did our own kind of TED talk, and yeah, with a collaboration with the Notre Dame professor, and we presented it on Zoom to a bunch of Filipinos. Yeah, it was great.
And then Daniela, have you interacted with the Career Development Center or engaged with internships?
I have. So for the Career Development Center, so early on, I was just a freshman, but I would always get these emails about like different opportunities, whether it be like job advice or like different workshops to attend. So I've attended a few, and they're really open, and you're allowed to like early on, you're allowed to take like headshots every year, or schedule like a meeting with an advisor to check your resume. And I think that's really helpful, especially for a freshman, because you see all these people junior year like searching for internships, but at least like as a freshman, I already am primed, and like even though I'm not necessarily doing all those things that juniors are doing right now, um I pretty much have an idea of what I need to do to start that process. And so it's been really helpful so far.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. Um, I just want to move into talking a little bit about the application process because I know many of you may be in your final year of high school this year. So at Notre Dame, we are a member of the Common Application and the Coalition Application. We have two different deadlines. We have restrictive early action, which is November 1st, and regular decision, which is January 1st. There is no inherent advantage to choosing one versus the other. We tell students to choose the deadline for which your application will be at its most competitive point, because we are a highly selective university. Restrictive early action is early action. Early action is just an earlier deadline. It's not binding. It's not early decision. Early decision is a binding decision. However, if you are applying early decision to another university, the restriction in our early action is that you cannot apply early to Notre Dame. So depending on the schools that you're looking at, you might already have a sense of which deadline is more appropriate for you. When you apply to Notre Dame, we are test optional. You completely have the choice of whether or not to submit SAT or ACT. This past class, 33% of our admitted students did not have a test score. So if you don't have one or you don't want to send yours, please know that many students make that same choice, and many of them have been successful in our application process. We have what's called a holistic review process. That means that each piece of your application bears considerable weight in our decision-making process. We're also really contextual. We understand that it has been a very challenging past 2 years in the Philippines in terms of school and activities, and we're keeping all of that in perspective when we're looking at your application. We're also aware, because of the many years that I have been coming to the Philippines, specifically to Manila, that there are different kinds of high schools with different kinds of opportunities. So all of that is taken into consideration. We're not comparing apples to oranges. We're really keeping you within that context of your high school. With our application, you have the opportunity to apply for financial aid. So with the application, When we're reading your application, if you need a visa to study in the US, we do read you in a need-aware basis, meaning that you have to apply for financial aid at the time of your application so that we understand what kind of funding you'll need in order to attend if we are to admit you. Now, if you have US citizenship, you're a dual citizen, US passport, green card, we read you in a need blind context. That means that the financial aid application is separate from the application process for admission. So that's the main difference between the international students and the US or permanent resident. So just know that moving forward. But if we do admit you, regardless of your citizenship, we are going to meet 100% of your demonstrated need. Every year we have students from around the world who are given very substantial packages to be able to attend Notre Dame. So we want you to fill those forms in good faith, and make sure to be very upfront about what your family could afford to contribute towards your education at Notre Dame. That way we can assist you in any way if we are to admit you. In terms of our merit scholarships, those are automatically considered at the time that you apply to Notre Dame. So we really encourage you to make sure we fully understand about the things you've been involved in. There's a section in the application called the additional information section. I really advise you to take advantage of that because the activity section only gives you like brief space to put your information. So if you have been doing fundraisers, if you have been doing research, if you have been doing a community-based organization project, you might want to use that additional information section to tell us more about the organization, more about the research. So that way we get a really rich understanding of what you have been doing. We want to give you full credit for everything you've accomplished in your application and potentially have you be looked at by our Notre Dame Scholars Program who make the determinations about the merit. So thank you in advance for being so thorough with your application. This picture that we're showing you here is one of the most treasured traditions at Notre Dame. This is our alma mater where the students link arms and sing the school song. And they do this after every sporting event, but it's very, very beautiful during the football season because of just how crowded the arena is and just the students taking the time after an intense football match to sing with the students. And this is just a really strong visual of the Notre Dame family. Coming such a long way to Notre Dame from the Philippines is a big leap of faith. Daniela and Cecilia have both made that leap of faith. And when you get to Notre Dame, we really want to ensure that you are finding your home there. We know that family is very important, and we really feel that in spite of all the differences between our students, that they really bond together in the name of Notre Dame and being together as the Notre Dame family. So we appreciate that you all have joined us today to learn more about that. So Daniela and Cecilia, I am going to ask you guys a question, and then we're going to move into our Q&A. We have about 20 minutes, so I think we should be able to hit all the high notes. So if each of you could tell me what made you decide to apply to and attend Notre Dame. And we will start with Daniela and then go to Cecilia.
Okay, so I decided to apply to Notre Dame specifically because of like the Catholic background and how I feel like Notre Dame really practices religion in a sense that it manifests through service and through ethics, and that's something very important to me. I decided to study business and I wanted a school that had a business school, and so we have Mendoza College of Business, and this is why I applied to Notre Dame, and it's very strong with like ethics, and I eventually want to build a business that is ethical and helps people in the process, and Notre Dame does that. I feel like the community and the sense of, I guess, the sense of service is super important. Like you asked earlier, was I involved in any service? I didn't think of anything in specific, but then I realized it's so engraved into the culture. Like for example, I helped my friend do this mini fundraiser for her dad because he was sick. So it's just little things like that here and there that you don't realize build up to a bigger picture of how much you care for the world and how much you want to contribute. And so that's why I chose Notre Dame, and all the people there have that sense and aspiration in life.
Yeah, I decided to choose Notre Dame, or more specifically, apply to Notre Dame because I wanted something out of my comfort zone, and that was a big challenge to me. I wanted a place where I knew I would grow as a person, not just academically, but in all aspects, and being a good human. And like what Danny said, doing service while studying, making a lot of good friends who care about the same things that you do. Um, while I was a little bit intimidated with Notre Dame at first because of like its high academic and prestigiousness, um, I found out that everyone there is really willing to help you. Like the Notre Dame community is so great that it's not just professors or TAs or even seniors who are willing to help you grow as a person, but also your dorm mates, your friends, anyone that you meet, even a classmate. So that's what really made me want to apply to Notre Dame. I knew that it was a very supportive community, and I didn't have to be a specific person to fit in. It's just that you can be whoever you want to be and still be successful.
So can either of you share about how winter has been at Notre Dame? Because I know that that's also a big question mark for students when they think about coming to the north part of the United States.
Honestly, I was very excited for winter because I could dress up in no way that I was able to dress up in the Philippines. I honestly think that anyone will be okay as long as you have the right clothing. As long as you have one good jacket or one good coat, you're really fine. As long as you have socks and good shoes, you'll be okay. It's actually fun. We have snow days sometimes.
And then I'm gonna pop into the Q&A and see what the question is. Oh, so there is a question about Notre Dame and South Bend. Is it a college town? Is it integrated into nearby cities? So Daniela and Cecilia, if each of you can speak about like how you've experienced the South Bend area as a student and as a member of the community.
I could start. So, um, I would have to say that Notre Dame's like a pretty enclosed area. Like, it is in South, like near South Bend. It is in South Bend technically, but pretty much a lot of the action, like there's a grocery like Trader Joe's. There's just everything that you need is within campus. So there's no need if you don't want to go around and explore the city. But there is South Bend that is a city. It's not like we are pretty much in the middle of like cornfields, but it is still a city. And so there are restaurants and places to go. I have a few friends who live in South Bend who have like taken me around, and Chicago's nearby. You could hop on a train that's just $15 to Chicago, and it gets you there really quick, 2 hours on a good day. No, actually 2 hours would be the longer side of end of it, but um it really is kind of, my friends and I joke that Notre Dame's its own state, which it's not, but it really has so much life in it that there really is no need to go outside of it unless you really want to. Like there's opportunities and ways to really get out and, be in the city, like enjoy like city things. Like there are buildings obviously, and like different places to go and have fun with your friends, but it's pretty like sufficient in terms of what is surrounding us.
Yeah, I'd say that for me, there's always something to do within the Notre Dame campus. Um, but if you do want to, you can still definitely explore the city. There are a lot of things to do. Um, you just have to be willing to, step out of your comfort zone and go and explore. But there's a lot of things to do.
Thank you both. We did have a question about how is STEM at Notre Dame? And I know both of you are not in a STEM field at Notre Dame, so I'm going to answer this question. So at Notre Dame, for all of our STEM majors, you are going to have obviously your first year advisor, but then when you move into your major, you will have advising directly from either the College of Science or the College of Engineering. We also have a computer science major within the College of Arts and Letters, and that's where you have an emphasis in humanities, but you're also learning computer science. So there are many ways to mix and match your interests. I would say, obviously the smaller class sizes and the opportunities to do research are a big part of life for our STEM students. For women engineers, we have a very amazing chapter of the Society of Women Engineers that really creates a sisterhood, a lot of support. There's just a lot of support in general among the Notre Dame students in terms of like studying together and helping each other with the projects. And I would say that translates really nicely for STEM students because obviously it gets harder with the math and the science as you're advancing in your studies. But ultimately at Notre Dame, you're going to find the support from both your students and from the professors there. All students in their first year have free access to our tutoring center and our writing center. And many Notre Dame students take advantage of those opportunities just to refine their skills, or if there's a particular area that they don't have as much strength in, they can work closely with someone to help them get that really strengthened up. So we know in that first year that it's going to be an adjustment. And so the university really throws open its arms in terms of the support it's going to give you with advising and the tutoring center and then the dorms to make sure that you're making that transition to your new home pretty safely and happily. We have a 98% retention rate for our students. That means that 98% of our class stays and goes into the second year. That's one of the highest in the entire country. So know that our students are happily and successfully moving from first year to second year, and that includes the STEM students. And then somebody said, what are the most popular majors? So I was gonna let you guys talk about what you think are the most popular majors, and then I can tell you guys what I see with the applications.
I think that, well, this is just, it might be a bit biased, but most of my friend group is like pre-med, so they're like either like neuroscience usually or like pre-professional. I also do know a lot of business analytics, finance, and econ students. A lot of people like to double major as well, so there will be overlaps between certain majors, I think.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I also am unsure about like what the exact numbers are, but like I feel like among the people I've met, maybe it's because I'm in the business school, but I've met a lot of like finance and business analytics students, but I've also met, I think it's also a PE thing, like a Pascagoula East dorm thing, but there are a lot of engineers, like all my friends are different types of engineers, and it's just interesting to see that they all share classes. So
Yeah, I would say from the applications that we get each year, there are a lot of students who want to study social sciences. So they're interested in economics, they're interested in psychology. I'm seeing an increasing number of mathematics majors. Engineering continues to really be popular, as do all of the majors within the Mendoza College of Business. One area that is not as like robust with applications, but when the applications come, it's really, really strong, is for our School of Architecture, which is a top 10 ranked program. And we really hope that we'll start to see more applications for our global affairs major, because that's a newer major, but it encapsulates so many areas that students used to have to like double major in or triple major in. And now it's just one major to help them really launch themselves globally in their careers. So that's what I have been seeing within the app pool. I am getting questions about the Filipino community at Notre Dame, and I'm wondering if Cecilia and Daniela can each speak to those.
I'd personally say that while there's not a lot of Filipinos in the Philippines, there are so many Filipino Americans. Like I always bump into like a Phil Am when I'm walking on campus or even in the dining hall, and they're just like another person to say hi to or like be friends with. So, um, yeah, that's my opinion.
I also think like there's a good amount of Filipinos. Like my RA, this like all happened with faith, but my RA was Filipino, my AR, meaning so my resident assistant and my just everyone involved with being like guiding me throughout my first year was Filipino, like randomly. And I even have like someone coming into my dorm who's Filipino. And so there's a lot of Filipinos that you can find a lot of Filipinos everywhere. Like I've met a few people in different classes who are like, "Oh, I'm half Filipino." Like that's so cool. And then they say some stuff in Filipino. And so there's definitely a lot of people if you like reach out and ask people's like backgrounds. There are definitely people that come from very interesting backgrounds and a lot of people that you can relate to for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I did have a question, and a student is asking, they're a current high school senior studying at a local school in the Philippines. Does this put me at a disadvantage against those with international credits like IB? So we're really fortunate. We have one student from a local school and we have one student from an IB school. So obviously right there, you see we have both kinds of students from the Philippines. But Daniela, do you want to speak about your application process and your experience coming from a local school to Notre Dame? And then we'll ask Cecilia what it has been like coming from an IB school.
I think I was definitely not put at a disadvantage. I feel like, as Miss Mary said earlier, they really assess you based on the environment that you're put in. So, however you can make the most of whatever you're offered in your school is how they kind of gauge your application. And I think it's very interesting because there are a few people who came from local Philippine schools rather, that are at Notre Dame, and there are a few like STEM people, and I was Humes, and I met another Humes girl, and it's just they really base it off like your fit and how kind of your personality, your way of doing things kind of intertwines with Notre Dame, and not necessarily like if you've taken IB, yes or no. Like it's not like a yes or no type of thing. It's really based on how you make use of what you're given.
That's perfect. Thank you. And then Cecilia?
For me personally, I think it's because I chose my IB class as well. I was able to um like advance by 12 credits, like or like have 12 credits down because I did like IB econ, English, which like all fit into my major psychology. So social science stuff. But I also know a lot of people in which IB did nothing for them, in which they got no credit at all. So yeah, and I do think that colleges really do judge you by the school that you're in. So for example, I was competing, like everyone in my school was applying to a US college, and I alone knew like 10 other people who were interested in Notre Dame, and those are only the people I knew from my batch. So there was just so much competition. So I think whichever setting you're in, as long as you do your best and be genuine, you'll be okay.
And one last question. How do you physically get to the campus? Like which airport, train, bus, flights, like how, like, okay, so this past fall, Daniela and Cecilia, how did you get to campus?
I can start. So I flew into O'Hare, so that's in Chicago, and then we drove down because I had my parents help me move in for the first time. So we drove down to, not down, but we drove to Notre Dame, and um, a lot of my friends travel through the South Bend airport because it is an international airport, although it doesn't like go directly from Manila to or the Philippines to South Bend. There definitely are like connecting flights. So if you fly into a state and then you connect from that major state to South Bend Airport, that's like possible, and it's only like 20 minutes away from campus. But aside from that, like a lot of people do like ride shares from the airport to campus, if especially if you arrive at the same time, and there are a few buses. So yes.
Yeah, I'm the same. I usually fly into Chicago, and well, most of the time now, I just go on my own, um, without my parents, and so I usually just like Uber with a friend, or we take the train together, and so there are a lot of ways to get there. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And we also have a rideshare board through Facebook. I personally have used that to get from South Bend to O'Hare when I was going to Singapore, because it was very expensive to fly from South Bend at that time. But usually I will fly from South Bend and connect somewhere else in the US. We have United Airlines, Delta, and American all connecting from South Bend to other major hubs and then from there into the world. So depending on which airline you prefer, or what your options are affordability wise, you have quite a few. We are running out of time, but I really quickly wanted to encourage everyone to scan the QR code if you would like to come to our Notre Dame on the road, our first ever since the pandemic. It's going to be on August 13 at the Polo Club at 5:30 p.m. We're going to have alumni, we're going to have current students. Hopefully we'll be able to have our students join us. And then also we're going to just be able to share a lot more about Notre Dame and answer all of your questions. So if you are able to join us, please register. We would love to see you there. I want to stop sharing my screen so that I can quickly thank my panelists for joining us today. I really hope that their stories have helped you all bring Notre Dame to life. And we welcome your questions. I'm going to put in the chat and the admissions email. And you can send any and all questions to that email. Me and my admissions counselor colleagues all answer that email account. So you're getting the best advice, the best guidance. And then just know that I will be coming to Manila surrounding the 13th. So I hope to visit your school. And if not, I hope to see you at our ND on the road. I'll let Danielle and Cecilia also say their thanks and goodbyes.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming. Your interest shows so much already, and really just trying to match what you love, and hopefully Notre Dame, if it's a good fit for you, to your life would be amazing. And there are so many wonderful people in Notre Dame. So go Irish.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We wish you a very successful camp, and please reach out if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary, Daniela, and Cecilia. I'm sure I can speak for everyone here when I say we learned so much about the University of Notre Dame and are definitely going to consider it when applying abroad. Personally, I'm a current senior who already had Notre Dame on their list, so I'm sure I speak for so many students who are really excited by this talk. To everyone here, if you're interested in staying in touch with and learning even more about the University of Notre Dame, go ahead and fill out the interest form with your contact details, or you can also reach out to the admissions email that Mary sent and check out their event. I'll put the link in chat, and it's also on our camp link tree. Just scroll down to the appropriate day and find the University of Notre Dame's name. And that concludes our session for today. A big thank you once again to all of our speakers and all of our attendees for joining us. The next college on the call will be the University of Sydney. If you'd like to stay for that, please stay on the Zoom call. Thank you all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you are all still doing good. And to those who have stuck with us, thank you for taking the time to listen in to our next amazing university with us today for our 2022 college fair. So, first things first, we would like to thank again our sponsors, the Princeton Review Philippines, AUG Student Services, LIMS Review Center, Study International Philippines, AIM Review Philippines, ICLA at Yamanashi, Gakuin University, and Syracuse University. So now I'm happy to introduce today's speaker representing the University of Sydney. They will be here with us for an hour to present about the academic, student life, and more about their university. And after the presentation, they will be ready to answer any questions that you might have for them. So once again, you can leave your questions in the Q&A feature, and our representatives will be reading the ones that they can answer. So um, we'll also be linking the interest form again in the chat box if you want your contact details to be forwarded to the University of Sydney. So just scroll down to the appropriate day, which is Monday, and you should see their name and a link to the form. So to our speakers at the end of your information session, please feel free to scroll through the questions in the Q&A and answer those you wish to. And without further ado, here's Miss Wendy Zhang, representing the University of Sydney.
Oh, there we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the University of Sydney presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially it is late evening for you guys in the Philippines, but it's actually 11 p.m. for us here in Australia at the moment. So my name is Wendy, and I am from the University of Sydney. I'm also a graduate of the University of Sydney as well, who's just come back to actually work here and actually speaking to all students coming from the Philippines who are interested in studying in Australia. And I also have here with me Alex, who is our star Filipino student who has come to USyd all the way from the Philippines. If you want to say hi, Alex, you unmute yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Alex. I'm currently a second year student at USyd. I'm doing a Bachelor of Science in Medical Science, and I'm majoring in neuroscience. And I'm also the Vice President of the Filipino Student Society of USyd.
Yay. Thank you, Alex. So we'll hear more from Alex about her experience in Australia and in Sydney, especially later on. But for the most part, I will just make sure if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put that through to the Q&A. And I'll hopefully be able to answer most of your questions through this presentation as well. So first things first, a lot of students probably ask not only just why Sydney, but sometimes where Sydney is. Australia is a very, very popular destination, but obviously might not always be the first thing you think of in terms of an overseas education. But I'm really here to actually tell you why the University of Sydney and Australia in general should be a destination of choice. Well, not just you, but everyone else, your friends, everyone that you know. Okay. So a student would usually actually start with the question of why should they actually study overseas? And a lot of people would understand that obviously this is a cultural experience. For example, you're getting a lot of new skills, leading a new life, you just turned 18, and you're starting to discover a whole new person that you could be as well as an adult. The other reason that most people actually study overseas is to actually expand their career opportunities and discover newer independent life outside of their family and their comfort zone. And I want to talk a bit more about what these skills that you build in an overseas education actually does for you. So you might see a lot of things that are looking at future job reports, especially after the pandemic, what type of skills employees are now looking for in terms of what makes an ideal person to actually enter the workforce once they've graduated. And it's not just technical skill people are actually looking at, especially after the pandemic, most people have been realizing a lot of the core skills that are mostly sought by our employers are actually soft skills. So this includes complex problem solving, people management, coordination, cognitive flexibility, for example, creativity and negotiation. And this has nothing to do with actually learning a specific technical skill. This is actually our soft skills that you learn as a journey from first year to third year to fourth year as a university student, picking it up as you go from different skills and different experience. And all of these are a unique way of actually gaining the experiences through a education in Australia as well. And Australian education, most people don't really know, but we are a very, very popular destination, third in the world for international students, with over 7 Australian universities ranked in the top 100 QS rankings, including the University of Sydney. We have great graduate employability salaries, a high standard of living, as well as high wages as well, and a great part-time working opportunities for our students, as even if they're on a student visa and studying with us. And in Australia, we actually have one of the highest ratio of international students per capita, in addition to actually having one of the highest domestic participation rates in the world amongst OECD countries. So that does mean that if you were to study with us, you're not only going to be joining a community that's going to be intellectually engaged in what you're learning, but they're also going to be actively there to help and support each other as well. And the University of Sydney in particular has contributed to the Australian economy more than most, well, just as much as any other university has. In 2019, we've contributed about $5.9 billion to our economy. And a lot of the things that you might not know about was actually discovered at the University of Sydney or by University of Sydney alumni, including Wi-Fi, which is what we're using right now to communicate. And also anything such technology such as Afterpay, which in the Philippines is, I think, the concept of pay now, buy now, pay later. So that was actually also first discovered, or first actually started from our University of Sydney alumni as well from the business school. And now they're actually a $240 million company in Australia. So going back to Sydney and the University of Sydney, where is it? So the University of Sydney is actually located in the city of Sydney on the east coast of Australia, and we're just a short 8.5-hour flight from Manila. We're also Australia's largest city, and unfortunately not the capital city because that is for Canberra, but we are often mistaken as the capital city of Australia just because of how iconic our buildings and structures are and how iconic Sydney as a city is. We have the Opera House, Sydney Harbour Bridge. We have a large city that enjoys a lot stronger zoo, for example. And we are the most popular city in Australia for international students, with 178,000 of them studying in the CBD area alone. 15,000 Filipino students studied in Australia in 2020, and about 5,000 of them call New South Wales home. Now, Sydney is uniquely Australia's economic superpower. And what I mean by that is it is a concentrated hub of technology, careers, and startups. More than 80% of Australia's foreign banks are actually headquartered in Sydney, and 64% of all of Australia's startups actually begin in Sydney as well. And that as such, we actually account for 50% of Australia's economic growth. And what that translates to is actually for you as students, opportunities for post-study careers to actually do internships in Sydney during your studies as well. And with the connections that the university does have, it means you have much more opportunities to actually grow your CV and grow your experiences even before you graduate. And work opportunities is also available for students who are on a student visa because you have up to 20 hours per week during the semester where you can work. And also post-study work visas after you graduate as well, which gives you opportunity to put your education to practice in an Australian environment. And the lifestyle of Sydney is not just about studying, it's also about actually playing around as well. We're a pretty temperate climate. Maybe Alex can actually confirm that, but we are very warm in the summers and could be quite fairly cold in the winters, but not too much, probably minimum 10 degrees, if anything. But we're also just as humid, but not as humid as the Philippines at the moment, actually. But we're very lovely during some period. You can see here in the Darling Harbour area. And in addition to that, we have been voted as one of the world's safest cities. So if you look at the Economist World Safest City rankings, we are actually ranked number 4 ahead of Melbourne, which is our other famous sibling rival in Australia, and just under Singapore, Toronto, and Copenhagen. And not only that, we are a country that has been famous for actually putting our COVID measures under control in the past 2 years. Despite our border closures, most of our citizens are also not only double vaxxed, but also triple vaccinated against COVID as well. So we're very conscious about not just security, but also the safety of our population and our foreign visitors as well. And the city of Sydney does really reflect one of the most exciting things about us, which is that we are a dynamic and beautiful city, and we really focus on the diversity of not just our population, but also the opportunities that we have. And the University of Sydney is a direct reflection of that as well. And not only that, we are also Australia's first university, and we were created by Oxford and Cambridge graduates who wanted to come back to Australia, which was where they were born, to actually create a university which could offer every child an opportunity to become great and useful destinies of their country. And to this day, we hold steadfast these philosophies in our admission as well, where we're offering equal and transparent opportunity and access for all students coming to our university, regardless of their international or domestic students. We are also located right in the heart of the city as well. So this red blob here that you see on the screen, that is where the University of Sydney campus is located, and it is a very, very short bus ride from the Harbour Bridge and Opera House, which you can see up here. And unlike most of the universities in Australia and in Sydney in particular, we are actually located on one giant campus. So you can basically call us actually a little university suburb on its own. We have a lot of fields. These grey buildings are all where our facilities are, and the blue buildings is where our accommodation is as well. If I were to normally give campus tours to students, it actually takes probably about, I would say half an hour to an hour to walk from end to end of each campus. And I can only show students about 1/3 of the campus, and that's already about 2 hours to really show them everything in depth as well. So we are a very large campus which has its own medical center, our own post office, museum, galleries, bus stops, eateries, optometrists, etc. So really, if you don't have to go off campus, you actually don't need to. But of course, because we are located in the center of Sydney, it means that you're going to have every opportunity to be able to explore the rest of Sydney as well. Oops. And for anyone interested later on as well, I actually have a campus tour on YouTube, which shows you a lot of the amazing facilities around the university as a live tour with explanations as well, if you'd like to go on that. Now, we talk about facilities. We are also among the world's 3 top research facilities as well. Number 1 in graduate employability with 70 world-renowned interdisciplinary research and teaching centers, including the Sydney Nanoscience Hub, which houses the only yellow room in the whole of Southern Hemisphere, which is basically dedicated to nanoscience research. So if you are interested in nanoscience, that is in the field of physics, this is the premier research university for you to actually go to, because we do have a nanoscience major, as well as the only yellow room in the Southern Hemisphere, as I said, which is basically where all the nanoscience research is conducted. So basically that room has zero static, recycled air every 27 seconds. Everyone needs to actually do a wet and dry shower before they go in. And it is where they're actually going to do research in collaboration with Microsoft to find nanoparticle chips is what they're developing at the moment. In addition to that, we also have our new Susan Wakel Health Building, which is for all our health science students, as well as our One Tree Island Research Station, which is located on the Great Barrier Reef for anyone who wanting to do marine science research. It means that if you have the opportunity, you are able to fly to Queensland, the Great Barrier Reef, to actually do research on marine science or whichever your minor and major is in that field. We also have extensive history of great leaders and alumni coming from the University of Sydney, with over 280,000 global alumni, including 7 Prime Ministers of Australia, 110 Rhodes Scholars, and 140 Olympians, all saying University of Sydney is their alumni or their current home. Because we're a public university in Australia, as is most of our top universities in Australia, actually, we all have quite large student populations. So about 73,000 students all up for us, most of them coming from 130 nationalities, and about 40% of those students are actually international students. So We are dedicated to actually making sure that our international students are well supported and actually integrated with our community to not just learn more about the Australian culture, but also for our students to actually learn more about you as well. And when it comes to rankings, the University of Sydney is actually ranked #1 in the world. Actually, sorry, #1 in Australia for graduate employability and number 41st in the world and top 3 in Australia in university rankings. And what that means for you as a student is that you'll be actually giving the opportunity to have great access to partnerships that we have had all over the world and all over Australia. If you look at these rankings, we're up there with MIT, Stanford, UCLA, and Harvard in terms of graduate employability rankings, employee-student connections, and alumni outcomes. So this does actually measure a lot of the opportunities that you are going to be getting as a graduate from the University of Sydney, where employees actually recognize the quality that's coming out of us. And if you would really want to compare as well the University of Sydney to some Ivy League schools in America, you can actually see for the value that you'd be getting as a world top 50 university compared to tuition, getting bang for your buck, you're actually getting a pretty good deal comparing to universities like Yale, Cornell, Brown. Of course, they are ranked higher than the University of Sydney, but we are also we're also half their tuition fee as well. So it's something to actually think about when you're kind of comparing universities, where you want to go, and the whole package about where would suit you for give you that growth that you need for the future as well. And the University of Sydney, these are just some of our top 50 rankings by subject in 2022. We are ranked #1 in Australia for nursing, medicine, clinical medicine, as well as Master of Management and Anatomy and Physiology, as well as veterinary science, which is an up-and-coming area that I am getting a lot of inquiries for actually as well. And so I guess that's a lot from me to actually think about and a lot from you guys to actually absorb. But I want to go back to Alex to ask her kind of why did she actually end up choosing University of Sydney? Because I remember when I first spoke to Alex, when she was first inquiring about us, she had a lot of questions and also a lot of choices to think about. So Alex, why did you in particular think about choosing University of Sydney when you were kind of going through your selection process in your final year?
So it actually wasn't an easy choice for me, to be completely honest with you guys, because I also passed like the big 4 universities in the Phils. And I got into my preferred course in my preferred university among those. So choosing between them and USyd made me weigh my priorities and align my decisions with what I really wanted. So first, it's petty for some, but I wanted a uni with high world university rankings. Because since I'm going overseas, why not aim for a university that's known for its reputable academic performance, right? Second, I wanted a uni with high research output as well and can actually fund research. Philippines barely does that, but unfortunately, but USyd does. In fact, neuroscience, my current major, so something I'm really interested in, is one of the fields producing heavy research output for USyd. Third, I wanted to finish my undergraduate degree quicker because in the Philippines and in other Southeast Asian countries, it's usually 4 years. For us in Australia, the typical bachelor's degree is just 3 years. And lastly, I chose USyd for its high graduate employability because who doesn't want even a little bit more chance to get a job out there once you graduate, right? And in terms of financial concerns, we all know that tuition fee abroad is much more expensive than staying in the Phils. But in USyd, just like any other uni abroad, it may cost a lot, but at the same time, you get what you pay for. So all these factors, rankings, high research output, 3 years bachelor's degree, graduate employability, and bang for the buck, they made me choose USyd. So yeah.
Thanks, Alex. If you don't mind me asking as well, probably a curiosity question for some participants out there. What were the other universities you were actually comparing USyd to? Were you looking at Australia and America as well, or just Australia?
I was looking into US and UK as well, actually, and Phils, of course. So for Philippines, for Big Four, I actually didn't take the test for LaSalle, but I took UST, UP, and Ateneo. I got into all of them with my preferred courses. And in US, I got into Fordham, the one associated with Ateneo, and I also got into NYU biology. And for UK, I got into several universities as well. For Australia, I applied for UCID and for MQU, but I chose UCID still.
Excellent. That's a lot of choices. And I'm pretty sure people would appreciate just how much you had to go research you had to actually go through to kind of shortlist everything as well.
It was a tough time for me actually deciding, because like that time, like when UP results were published, when it was released, I kept on seeing posts like naghihintay ang bayan para sa'yo, something like that. So it means the nation is waiting for you. And I felt kind of bad choosing another uni abroad, but at the same time, I was telling myself, oh, if I finish my degree quicker, then I can also go back home and serve the people there quicker. So, no.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll talk more about you as well. Oh, sorry. Yeah. But we'll talk more about you later as well, because I know you're currently actually, like a lot of students in the audience, are probably actually have aspirations for medicine, right? Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk a bit more about that later on. Right now, I'll go back to actually talking about what courses we may have at the university as well. So what can you actually study? So when we were actually going to revamp our undergraduate degree a couple of years ago, we thought about what really students needed in this current climate. For example, there are a lot of reports out there saying that students now in this generation, Gen Z, so to speak, is going to be changing their careers about up to 6 times in their lifetime. They're no longer going to be doing a Bachelor of Commerce and then staying in the corporate field for the rest of their life. They're going to be changing from corporate to nonprofit to other areas. And so when we're thinking about creating our undergraduate experience for students, we wanted to give you the opportunity to not only just design the degree that you wanted, but also design a degree that was actually going to serve you for not just your first career, but the second and the third that you've had. So what we have here is key is flexibility for our students to actually tailor the degree to follow their interests, both technical and soft skills as well. So for all our STEM subject-based areas, what we do have available for students from the Faculty of Medicine and Health, obviously all the standard medicine, physiotherapy, exercise physiology, pharmacy, nursing. We have the Faculty of Science, which houses all our veterinary science, medical science, psychology, for example, and our Faculty of Engineering and IT, which does our biomedical, chemical, computer science, which is our standard computer science degree, mechatronic and software engineering, among others specialties. We also have liberal arts-based subject areas, for example, from our Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Faculty of Architecture, our Sydney Law School, and our University of Sydney Business School. And that houses all the standard economics, sociology, philosophy, banking, accounting, business law, design and architecture, and the law school, for example. So with the number of subject areas that we actually do have when we're designing our degrees, we are allowing our students to actually pick and choose what they want to do from over 400 study areas and over 100 plus shared pool of majors and minors. And what this means for you is that you are not locked in to a single major in a degree. We are allowing a student to actually choose a second major from a different faculty. So this means that over the course of an academic year, which is over the course of the academic year, we have 2 semesters at the University of Sydney. You're actually going to be able to select a single degree, for example, when you actually apply to us, which in this case can be a Bachelor of Science. And then what happens is that you can actually select your major from your own faculty in the Faculty of Science, and that would be neuroscience, for example. And your second major can actually come from a faculty that is different from what you have right now, for example, business school. And you can do something like innovation and entrepreneurship. So that means that you actually can graduate with a Bachelor of Science in both neuroscience and innovation and entrepreneurship, which is something that is really unheard of in Australia. It gives you an opportunity to really explore different interests that you might have. For example, your mum might want you to do pathology, biology, anything pre-med, but you might actually be interested in something like music or visual arts, for example. And we give that opportunity for students to explore those interests in their first, second, and third years as part of the revamp of the undergraduate degrees at the University of Sydney. Not only that, because of the opportunity outside the classroom, you're able to actually fit in faculty mentoring, interdisciplinary units, industry placements and research programs. With the help of our Career Center, for example, which actually puts you in entrepreneur skills programs you can apply for. It gives you workshops to learn about your rights to work in Australia and also help you connect with our leading business, government, and community organizations in Australia for working projects so you get some experience in the real world. In addition to that, as part of your degree, we have the goal of actually pushing more than 50% of our cohort and students entering the University of Sydney into some sort of international experience. So the University of Sydney proudly has the largest mobility program in Australia. And that means we have over 250 international partners across 42 countries, from 6-week programs to 1 4-year exchange programs. We are there to actually help you achieve your goal of actually getting a more international experience than you ever thought possible. In addition to that, accommodation is also available on campus as well, so you don't even actually have to worry too much about where you're going to be going or where you're going to be staying in Australia and Sydney. And these are just some of the partners that we actually work with. When it comes to research, mobility, and industry projects they could think about, including Qantas, which is our national carrier airline, Stanford University, Penn in terms of research, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and EY as well. And not only that, we also have a big focus on students actually getting a social support network when they come to Australia. Being so far from home, we want you to feel like you're building a community and making friends. And so we have Welcome Week every single semester to actually help students get integrated, get themselves orientated at the university. We have multicultural faith and support at the university, as well as emergency financial assistance, on-campus health services, multi-faith chaplaincy center, and disability services, including the Mathematics Learning Center, as well as over 200 clubs and societies that you can join, including our very own Filipino Student Society as well, which Alex is actually a part of. So with all of that, it looks like an amazing experience at a university to actually have, but it's also a lot to actually fit in. So I guess I want to come back to Alex, who is here with us today to actually kind of tell us what a week in the life of a usage student really looks like for her. Alex is currently in her second year of a medical science degree, which for most of you out there would be equivalent to a pre-med course, essentially. And so she's entering her third year next semester, I think, and she's preparing to actually enter into a postgraduate medicine course at the University of Sydney, or she's trying to apply for one. And so she's really busy studying, she's really busy looking at joining societies, and you also doing a whole lot of other things as well. So Alex, back to you. What does a week look like for you?
Hey guys, it's me again, and this time I'm presenting how my week usually goes as a medical science neuroscience student at USyd, starting off with my second year timetable. So next slide, please, Wendy. So the first semester of uni starts in February, the second starts in August. I finished high school in March of 2020, so I actually had two options. First, I could have started the first semester of 2021 or second semester of 2020. I decided to study my course in the second semester of 2020. So for technically my first semester in university, I was taking second semester units. So here are my schedules, which I also made my wallpapers, like how students in the Philippines usually do it, class up. Yeah, so for year 2, semester 1, I was taking 2 6-credit point units. I was taking Meds 2004, that's microbes, immunity, and infection, and Meds 2005, that's human anatomy and histology. And I also took 6 2-credit points OLEs, or open learning environment units, which are basically short units about a diverse range of topics. And for year 2, semester 2, that's the second photo, which was last semester for me, I took 4 6-credit point units. Meds 2001, which is human physiology, Meds 2002, pharmacology, Meds 2003, microbiology and biochemistry, and Psych 2015, which is brain and behavioral psychology. It looks like I do a lot of studying from my schedules, but I make sure I also have time for work and play throughout the semester. Next slide, please, Andy. So here are photos of study, most of them from my lab classes. For example, the third photo, first row, shows one of our physiology dry lab sessions when we had to measure our blood glucose every 15 minutes after ingesting a glucose drink to see insulin rate. The first photo in the third row also shows an organ bank from pharmacology class when we had to measure the effect of acetylcholine on a bovine trachea tissue. Most of the other photos here are from my biochemistry classes where we did DNA genotyping, electrophoresis, and also PCR. The second slide of study, next slide please, Sandy. So here are more photos of study. My friends and I often gather in uni to study together too. Next slide please, Sandy. So next is work. I am currently the vice president for the Filipino Student Society of USID, and I also allot some time for society work weekly. Here are some photos from Philosoph. So the third photo, first row, shows our group photo during Salubong. That's our first society event for each semester. We also held karaoke nights, film viewings, pub crawls, as you can see from the third photo, third row. So that's at the club because we do pub crawls too. We're cool like that in FSS USID. And we also held other online events for our offshore members. Next slide, please. And last is play, or anything really that you do for leisure out of school or work hours. Here are some photos of me and my friends during my 5-month stay here so far. Sydney is a big city and there's definitely a lot to do and a lot to visit here. So that's a week for me. And what's next for me? So academically, I'm in year 3, semester 1 next sem, and it will mostly be on campus or face-to-face for me. So I will be taking 4 6-credit point units again next sem. I'm taking pathogenesis of human disease, diagnostics, and biomarkers, neuropharmacology, and medical science interdisciplinary project. Someone also commented, Papaya McLaren fan. Yeah, in my free time, I watch F1 with my friends as well. So that's part of play for me. And then I have a class here, AMED 3003. That's diagnostic and biomarkers, practicals, and workshops. And for me, next sem, it's actually held in a hospital, in Westmead Hospital. I'm having it twice a week. I'm having more practicals, so I have more hours of hands-on study. And at the moment, I'm also preparing for my medical school exam, which is GAMSAT. Work-wise, I'm serving my last term as an FSS USID executive as the vice president this year. And I'm excited to meet offshore students who are finally joining us next semester. And socially, I'm just looking forward to making more friends and more outings now that almost everyone is fully vaccinated. And everyone else is coming here as well since borders are already open. And lastly, I'm sharing my 3rd-year timetable with you. So this is how it looks like for a 3rd-year Sem 1 medical science neuroscience student. I'm actually shifting between 2 weeks. This is one of the weeks. And then the next slide is the 2nd week. This is when I have like classes in Westmead or in the hospital. So you can see too in my schedule that I have clashes. So for example, the first column shows that I have another class in conflict with my class in Westmead. But the thing with USID is all classes are recorded, so I can just rewatch them after. Like I won't have to worry about missing them or about attending another class because I can catch up immediately after. So that's it for me. Week in my life.
Thank you, Alex. How much time do you actually have to yourself after all of this?
Yeah, actually for next sem, I'm quite nervous because I think it's also my busiest semester yet, especially with my class in Westmead Hospital, because I actually live in Central and that's an hour away from Westmead. So I would have to allot extra 2 hours just for going there and going back home. But I have friends, so I'll just make sure that I still hang out with them once in a while, even though I have a hectic schedule next time. Also,
All right.
it's our break at the moment, like our midsem break. So I'm making sure I get all the sleep I need, like compensating for it beforehand. And yeah.
All right. We'll get back to Alex soon, just because I know a lot of people are actually quite interested in her journey and also what medicine might be like in Australia and at the university. But I'll go through our admissions courses just because that is sort of the last thing we have at the moment. So what is admissions requirements like in Australia? So in general, we're actually quite transparent with what we are looking for in students. And for the most part, most of the universities in Australia actually do not require anything other than looking at your transcript and English language requirements. And that is also the same for the University of Sydney as well. So when it comes to kind of acceptable academics transcripts that we look at for the University of Sydney, we do accept the K-12 Philippines High School Diploma as proof that you have finished high school, but that alone cannot be accepted for admission. So in addition to the K-12 diploma, we do require students to sit the SAT and present SAT scores, as well as English language testing scores. And then that's all three of those documents will be required for you to get direct admission into a bachelor's degree first year at the University of Sydney. If you're doing IB or A levels, all you need to do is present your IB or A level scores to us, and you'll be able to actually also get direct admission to our bachelor's degrees as well. If you don't have any of those and you only have the K-12 diploma, the alternative option you can do is a pathway admission that we call Foundation Studies at the University of Sydney Foundation course as well. And so additional criteria can come down to specific degrees, for example, but is not required for across the board for every single degree that you can apply for. For example, a form might be required for veterinary science. Also, IELTS is required for nursing, but otherwise, most of our degrees only require you to have one, your recognized academic transcripts, which is either IB, A-level, AP exams, for example, or English proficiency. Now, these are the popular these are scores for popular courses that we have at the University of Sydney, including design, architecture, arts, economics, commerce, and science, medical science, if you have an IB, SAT, or A levels, for example. So that's just an example of kind of what we're looking for in terms of admission scores. And students can actually apply from up to 12 to 18 months prior to actually commencing. So if you apply now, you can actually submit an application for 2024 for some of our degrees as well. So there is no need to actually wait if you already have some of these academic results. For some degrees, specialist degrees, for example, there is only one intake per year. So that's why you then have to wait only 12 months. But for our other degrees, all you really need is actually getting the documents together and submitting it for any future intake you have. Now, with the documents that we only need for your application process, again, it's only pretty simple. 4 documents: your passport, your academic transcript, your diploma to prove that you've actually graduated high school, and English proficiency. A personal statement is actually not required for admission. It would only be required if you're looking for scholarships, for example, and not every scholarship will require a personal statement either. So we are very, very transparent in what we're looking for from students, and we're very understanding about what it is that we have. Now, when it comes to scholarships and funding, we have quite a number of these for students depending on merit and academic standing. So Vice Chancellor International Scholarship for students is up to $40,000 for an undergrad for the first year. The Business International Student Scholarship as well offers about $5,000 to $10,000 for a first-year student. Undergraduate Merit Scholarship for Engineering is a $13,000 scholarship per year annually. And there's also a number of different faculty sports scholarships ongoing, depending on which degree you're with, for example. So this is a list of the example of a merit scholarship for international students that we have. Could range from $6,000 to $20,000, for example, or $1,000 for 1 year. So it really will vary depending on which degree you're actually looking for as well. And so, and that was quite a lot, but if there's any questions regarding those, definitely please let me know in the Q&A. And so going back to why you would actually study overseas, we truly believe, as someone like Alex, who is actually looking for a study overseas experience, that doing so is actually going to be the most exciting and daunting experience you're ever going to have. And you would like to actually make the most of it. And hopefully I've convinced you to actually look a bit more into actually studying in Australia and in Sydney as well. And maybe if you'd like to ask any more questions in the Q&A, please do so. Happy to answer anything and any questions you guys might have. And there have been quite a few, so I'll get to those questions soon with Alex, because we do only have 15 minutes to go. And so if actually you want any information from this info session, you can scan this QR code and it actually has our scholarship information, admissions information, as well as my contact details and the contact details and the Facebook details to the Filipino Student Society as well. Okay. And I'll go through, well, there's quite a number of questions, but most of all, there's actually quite a number of questions for you, Alex. So you'll be excited to know that. I'll start with that because we've answered some of them. So Alex, someone actually wanted to ask, where did you sit your exam for the SAT? Because you went to Ateneo, right?
Yeah,
Ateneo
yes.
high school
In
student.
year 12, I was in Ateneo, and that same year I took the SATs in Manila as well. So I think I took it in, I don't remember, Grace Christian College, I think, but one of the available branches for SAT that time. But I'm not really sure how it is now, given the COVID situation
Pandemic.
in the Philippines.
Yeah. No, that makes sense as well. I know there's a lot of students have had a lot of trouble sitting the SATs so far. And I think for you especially as well, you had to do remote learning for the first 2 years of your degree, and then you only were able to come to Australia this year. Has it lived up to your expectation? Everything you've done a year and a half online, looking at everything through a Zoom screen, and then you've come to Australia now, and you've only been here for 6 months. You've finished your first semester. Have we lived up to your expectations down under?
Very much so. I am very much enjoying like face-to-face classes, interacting with my classmates and meeting new people here in Sydney. Although the first 1.5 years weren't really the best, just being at home and staying online, USID made sure that, I still didn't miss out. But when I came here, it's just the full experience. So it's really different. Our campus is so nice. What else? We have good food in campus too. There are lots of places to chill in campus, and it's a conducive place to study, really. We have many libraries as well.
Awesome. Actually, this question is probably something that might relate to you, especially, rewinding back to 2 years since you've actually started looking at applications and stuff. We have a question in the Q&A that says, any tips and recommendations on submitting and gathering the required documents?
For me, what I did when I was applying for international schools was to actually just create a Google Drive with everything in it. So my diploma, everything from Ateneo, and everything that I also needed for international applications. And it's also good, I think, to make a Google Sheet for it. Just track your progress of application for all universities you're applying for. Yeah.
Awesome. And there was also one, since you're in the sciences as well, I thought I'd ask you, did you feel like going into the science degree that you needed to actually have a solid foundation in any particular subject from high school, or did you feel like going in, you actually had all the support you needed, even for subjects you were not familiar with and didn't have a background in high school?
To be honest, I think that taking STEM in year 12 was an advantage, because for MedSci, for first year, we had to take human biology, and we were also required to take chemistry again. And yeah, it actually helped me having background in sciences. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who also didn't have that background and they were able to do well still. So yeah, I feel like towards the start of the semester, the professors, your lecturers will all make sure that you're in the same level with everyone else. So you'll be fine either way.
Thank you, Alex. So we've actually had a lot of questions regarding medicine at the University of Sydney as well, or what medical science is like. So medicine at the University of Sydney is a postgraduate entry course. So it means that you must have some sort of bachelor degree before you can actually do the 4-year Doctor of Medicine. And that's where you get qualified to become a doctor in Australia. So like Alex, she's doing her first 3 years now, and then she's sitting her exam to actually apply for the Doctor of Medicine course. it can be quite a long journey, but just so everyone knows, our Doctor of Medicine course actually accepts students from any background. You do not have to be a STEM background student to actually apply for a Doctor of Medicine. About 20% of our students entering medicine at the university is from a non-STEM background. So our encouragement is for you to actually study a degree that you think you're going to do well in. Don't just study something that you think is going to be relevant to medicine, because you might not know what that is like down the line. So it's really encouraging to actually get as high GPA as possible by studying a degree that you're going to do well in. And then applying for Doctor of Medicine at the end of your degree if you feel like that is something you still want to do. And I think that's really beneficial for students as well, because sometimes at 18 to 22, when your degree when you finish your degree, you do a lot of growing up, your options might change as well. So this is a really good way for students to actually kind of discover a few things, do a few subject areas before they actually commit to a full postgraduate 4-year Doctor of Medicine degree, because it is a huge time and financial commitment as well. All right. So I also have a couple of questions regarding English. English is not like IELTS is not a requirement at the University of Sydney if you're doing IB or A levels, but it is a requirement if you're submitting SAT results. Okay, so that is something that is needed. A recommendation letter from a teacher is not required for admission. So all we require for admission is your transcripts, which is either your SAT or IB or A levels, for example, the proof that you finished high school, and English language requirements. That's the only 3 things we need for admission. And we have another question for Alex, knowing that we have 10 minutes left. Alex, do you have any recommendations on what material or option can we use to review for standardized testing, which is, I assume, the SAT?
So I took both the SATs and the IELTS for my admission to UCID and to my other universities as well abroad. And I actually studied for IELTS and SATs the same time as year 12. So I didn't have that much time for it, but I still made sure I did practice tests. What I did was to buy like the practice exam books and fully booked, because there was one time my cousin was just telling me about SATs and ACTs. And at that time too, she was reviewing for something else as well. So we went to the bookstore together, we bought the practice test, and that's what I did, both for the SATs and the IELTS. I also utilized online resources, and I think there's a lot. So make sure to like just look in the internet for those practice exams, because I'm sure there's a lot for free as well.
Awesome. And there's another question as well. What's the most popular major in UCID? Actually, well, from an admission side, from our popular major, it's definitely a lot of arts and social sciences and normal sciences. And that includes definitely medical science being one of those. Sociology, psychology is a very, very popular one as well. Alex, from your experience, what is neuroscience a popular major, you think? Or all your friends from different areas?
I have friends from different areas actually. Most of them, I think I have 2 friends doing psychology. A lot are also doing human anatomy and histology as their majors. I have a close friend doing immunology and pathology. But I think, guys, if you should choose neuroscience.
That is her recommendation. Someone else, and we have about 8 minutes left, so I just wanted to get 2 more questions in if we can. Someone has actually asked in the chat, any advice on how to self-study efficiently? So Alex, I felt like you were amazing during the remote study, that you were able to self-study efficiently and get HDs while doing remote study from the Philippines and being part of the society from your very first semester. So how did you do it?
My first tip would probably be to remove all your distractions. So keep your phone away from yourself. And then social media as well. It's not really a good thing when you're studying. So keep those tabs closed too. But really for studying, I have 2 best friends. One is Notion, 2 is Anki. So Notion for organizing stuff, and Anki's like an application with online flashcards, which I use for studying, very useful for sciences. And yeah, just with Notion and Anki, I get by actually. So you guys should try it too.
Thanks so much, Alex. So we have a question about IBs. students actually, who obviously they sit their exams in May and then the results are released in July. But university actually starts in August at the University of Sydney, which is a very, very tight schedule. So this is something I forgot to mention. As an admission process, we actually accept predicted IB and A level scores for students wanting to enter August intake every year. So if you have IB or A levels, all we require is a form from your or formal letter from your IB or A level coordinator at school telling us what your predicted score is. Basically produce that predicted score letter. If you send that to us, we are able to actually use that to issue you an offer before you even sit your exams. So if you want like more information about that, please let me know and contact me via my email. I'll be happy to explain the whole process to you as well. Okay, and that is actually, we have one more question while we have 5 minutes left. Is also again for Alex. Okay, Alex, you're very popular today, which is what I expected. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So how different was your experience studying in the USyd compared to Philippine schools like Ateneo?
Okay, so for context, I actually came from the province before coming into Ateneo, and it wasn't that good as well, the education that we had in the province. So when I went to Ateneo and when I was with my cohort there, I felt dumb, like in Ateneo. But when I moved to USyd, I felt even dumber, which isn't a bad thing, really, which isn't a bad thing. Because in USyd, compared to the Philippines, because in the Phils, I think we compare ourselves to other people a lot in the Phils. Like it's very competitive. We rank each other a lot. But here in Sydney, you may feel dumber, like I do, but at the same time, you help each other up. It's like you're competing with yourself rather than with them. You're competing with yourself rather than with other people here in Sydney. So while the lessons are hard, while the practicals are hard as well everything is hard anyway, you have friends to help you along the way. So I feel like it's better here because it's less competitive. You learn more, and that you're more relaxed. I'm more relaxed here at least than in the Phils because I feel like there's less pressure for me here. Yeah. I don't know what else to say actually, but if I would compare it to, I think in terms of culture, in Sydney, it's very culturally diverse. So when you're here, you're going to make friends with people of different cultures, and it's actually a fun experience as well. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've actually assimilated into Australian culture? You know how we're really lazy and we're like shortening a lot of words? Like,
Yes.
do you understand the Australian speak and our accent now? Do you feel after 6 months living here?
Yeah, I feel like I understand some of their lingo already. Like when I got here, I think I broke 3 brollies already, 3 Aussie brollies.
three brollies. For those who don't know what
Brollies
brollies
already.
are, yeah, it's umbrellas in Australia. We call umbrellas brollies in Australia, and world famously, we call McDonald's Maccas in Australia as well. So
And
yeah.
we call the electric people Sparky.
Oh yeah, we do. So thank you so much, everyone. We actually have 3 minutes to the end of this panel. So maybe we could have, I think we have time for maybe one more question before we end. Actually, yes, this will be the last question because this is a really interesting one. Someone's asked, what's the living situation like in the country? Like, what are the expenses like? Obviously, Australia has quite a high standard of living, and we are sort of famously well known for being sort of quite, I guess, expensive. But in reality, we're no more expensive than I think the UK or even the US. Alex, what is your view on sort of this living situation, living standard?
It's a first world country, Australia. So of course it's more expensive than in the Phils. When I got here first, I was converting every time because approximately 1 AUD is 40 pesos. And for example, in the Philips store here, they would sell pancit canton, and that's like $8, which is about 320 pesos for 1 pack, which I found expensive, very expensive at first. But at the same time, it's just getting used to it. Because in terms of work as well, I know friends who tutor like high school students and they earn $70 an hour. If you convert that to Philippine peso, that's like 2,800 an hour, and they teach for like 4 hours as well. So in a day, in just 4 hours, you get how much? Less than 10,000 pesos already, around that price. So while the living expenses are well, it's expensive living here in Sydney, when you actually work, you'll also realize that it compensates. So yeah. During my first week here too, I actually volunteered as like a jiu-jitsu moderator because my aunt made me. My aunt made me. And I was so surprised that I earned around 20 per hour and I worked for 5 hours. So just in 5 hours, I earned around 5,000 pesos already. And that's a lot.
Yeah, we have a very good labor laws here and very good living situation, which is we're all thankful for actually. So minimum wage, yay for Australia. But I think we'll end it there because the next panel is coming in about a minute. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please scan the QR code or put your name in the info form that the camp people are sending around. Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you so much. Hopefully you have a great rest of your time at the camp Philippines presentations as well after us. Thank you
Alright.
guys.
Thank you so much, Mandy and Alex, for being with us. We appreciate your time. And yes, I'm sending in the interest form right now. So if you're interested in staying in touch and learning more about the University of Sydney, go ahead and fill out the form. And that concludes our University of Sydney session for today. So thank you for our attendees for joining us. And the next college on call will be IE University. So if you would like to tune in for that, please stay on the Zoom call. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, hi everybody. I'm not able somehow to turn on my camera. So I guess unless Santino, maybe you're here, you can help me.
Yes, I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
All right, so hi everyone, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. We have another amazing university with us today for our 2022 college fair. But first things first, we thank our sponsors for helping making this event possible: the Princeton Review Philippines, AUG Student Services, LIMS Review Center, Study International Philippines, AIM Review Philippines, ICLA at Yamanashi Gakuin University, and Syracuse University. Now, I'm happy to introduce today's speaker representing IE University. They'll be here with us for an hour to present about academics, student life, and more in their university. After the presentation, they can also answer any questions you might have for them. To our attendees, if you have any questions at any point during the talk, please feel free to send through the Q&A feature. I will also link an interest form in the chat if you want your contact details to be forwarded to IE University. Just scroll down to the appropriate day and you should see their name and a link to the form. To our speakers, at the end of your information center, please feel free to scroll through the questions in the QA and answer those you wish to. So without further ado, here's Andrea Pagani.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. I see that the video works. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna share my screen so that we start with a presentation. I know that it can be a little bit boring after a while, keep hearing about presentation, but that's the best way, to give a glance and a taste of the university. So I'll try to, focus on the main aspect and be short and concise and give you some of the most relevant and interesting thing and aspects about IE University. So the most important thing are, of course, the students, the ones who are going to university and make the university what it is. When I say our students, we're talking about students that come from 50 and more education system. We're talking about an extremely international student body, more than 75%. We're actually among the most international universities in the world, I think top 5. Around 50 languages spoken on campus and more than 140 nationalities just in the undergraduate students' background. So that's just to give you an understanding of the idea of internationality we're talking about. The profile of our students. So now we've seen more or less where they're from, but we want to see who they are. For us, it's very important to have to find very well-rounded profile. So it's not just about the grades, which of course are very important, but we cannot judge you because of a number on a paper. We want to see more. We want to see hobbies. We want to see passion. We want to see your mindset. We want to see how you would fit within our environment. So that's what we call a holistic kind of approach, in which we see you as people rather than just grades and number. So it's important for you to kind of match this profile: outgoing, pragmatic, tolerant. So the idea of understanding each other, being able to interact with people with different culture, background, philosophies. The university. Okay, so now we've seen the protagonists of the universities, which are the students, and we see about the university itself. The university itself has 4 pillars that for us are very important. The entrepreneurial mindset, you will hear this word entrepreneurship, entrepreneurials, etc. a lot at IE. It's something that we really believe on. We have been ranked from Bloomberg first in the world for entrepreneurship for 2 years consecutively. So it's something that it's very important for us, for our students, to believe in their own ideas and keep working on them. Technological immersion and innovation. IE stands for innovation for us. Our slogan is drive innovation. So we try to keep up with what is happening outside, right? We try to see what is happening in the real world, and we try to adapt our classes to that and give you all the possible and newest tools. The diverse experience is given by the fact that you were able to find people with different background in terms of, studies, in terms of culture, in terms of religion, and then go beyond, which is my favorite. IE is not just a university. IE is much more. It's an experience, is a path for growth. He's making friends, he's enjoying. This is what we mean by going to university. Some of the reasons why you should go to IE: definitely the learning environment. We try to match between an American way of teaching and a European one. European being more traditional, so more books and theory, American more practical. And we try to have them both and well blended. The international experience, again, given by the fact that we have an extremely international students body. Very accessible faculty, meaning it's not even rare that you take a coffee with your professor or you go out. They're very friendly and available, which it's very important and makes the experience even more enjoyable. Turn your ideas into reality, because this is something we really believe on. And when I said entrepreneurship, this is what I meant. And definitely also take advantage of the student-centered approach. So as a student, you will be Andrea Pagani, which is my name in this case. You will be your own person, not just a number, not just one of many. All right. So it's very important for our professors to start calling you by your name maybe in a few weeks, which is not uncommon at high school. It is instead at universities, because you might find classes with 200 and plus people. It doesn't happen at IE because we have around 45 or 50 students max per class. Our campus. So we spoke in very general terms, but where is IE? Where are we? In Madrid, the capital of Spain. It's the sunniest capital of Europe, if you enjoy good weather. We have a new campus that opened its door in September 2021, so not a long time ago, and it's a skyscraper. Probably it's not something that cool for you guys living in the Philippines, maybe VGC, Makati, etc. But for Madrid it is. There are only 5 big skyscrapers, and Madrid is one of them. The IE Tower is one of them. So it's a 36-floor tower dedicated only to undergraduate students, so not masters. They will be in another building, and also the offices of IE. This is just a look of Madrid. This will be the old campus and where masters are studying, and also this other building will be the previous undergraduate campus. And then Segovia. So we don't have only one campus, but we have 2. Segovia is this medieval town 1 hour far from Madrid. Our programs offer you the possibility to start in Segovia and then finish in Madrid. So in a way you have this dual experience. Segovia is more the historical part, I would say, in Spain, in a way, just to let you know that you will be studying in the convent of Santa Cruz, which was founded quite a while ago. So you will be studying in this building that, of course, has been renewed and renovated for the students, to study and have all the technological tools that they need, but it's kind of a different experience. So this is what you will find in the Segovia campus. This is the famous Roman aqueduct that was built there, and this is the castle in Segovia. It's a pretty beautiful town that you can stay for 1 or 2 years, depending on the program you choose, and then you will move to Madrid to finish the program. But some programs also offers you the chance to just study in Madrid. So what bachelors do we offer at IE? We kind of vary, so it's more famous for business, but actually we have several programs. We go from law, and we build several tracks with King's College, for instance, in London. We have a track with ITAM in Mexico. We have a track with Northwestern in the US. Architecture, it's another very cool program. We have the head of the architecture, School of Architecture is called Martha Thorne. She's the head of Pritzker Prize. Pritzker Prize is like the Nobel Prize for architecture. So she's a very, very important person. She's the head of our school. But then we have international relations. We have a relationship with the United Nations. The program is actually built by them. We have computer science. We have economics. We have communication and digital media, and so on. And we're working on 2 more programs. We probably are coming up next year, which are math, applied math, and sustainability. Not only, we also offer dual degrees. So dual degrees are a combination of these programs. So you can do business and law, you can do politics, law, economics, and data. You can do business administration and design. I think we're the only university that offer this program. It's quite unique, and many more. And then outside the classroom, because as I said, is not just about going to class, but there's also a life, beyond the classroom and beyond books. So what we have are the clubs. So we have a wide range of extracurricular activities. So clubs are for people who are, let's say, passionate about philosophy, passionate about math, passionate about any other topic. We have around 100 plus clubs. You can be the founder of one of them. If there's something that you like and you see that there's an interest, but there's no club, you can talk to the administration at IE and be the founder of a new club. There's the language center. So we offer you the chance to learn more languages. Very important thing, which I haven't mentioned. You will be studying in English and in English only. So Spanish university, but everything is taught in English, but you get the chance to, of course, learn Spanish, especially in the first year, because in the first year, for the people who don't have a minimum level of Spanish, you will have to do that. But that's just the first year. But you can also learn German, you can learn French, you can learn Chinese, you can learn Hindi, and many more. And for the students who do international relations, that will be mandatory to actually pick another language. And then the students' office assessment, this will be for the career side. So that would mean we have a specialized staff that is dedicated only for your career goals, to help you with what's going to happen and what's going to be the next step. And you will be assigned your own advisor from day one. They can help you with everything: interviews, CV, connections that we have, and so on. So these are just some of the clubs that I mentioned. It can be something more curriculum related. So maybe, let's say, finance club, but it can be just something for sport and something that you like to do, like Alpine Club, etc., etc. And we organize competition, trips, etc. The labs. So the idea is that at IE, you also get the chance to work in the first 2 years. So for every kind of specialization, we have the labs in which you have the chance to work in a project offered by IE and offered usually by a company that is partnering with us. So it can be a project sent by Deloitte that IE sends to our students, and they start working on it. We have the possibility to do exchange as well. We have more than 200 partners in the world. Here in the map, you see just some of them, but literally we have many. In the Philippines, we have 2. We have De La Salle and we have Ateneo, for instance. Then some numbers, okay. So I'm not a big fan usually of numbers, but it's just to give you an idea also what we're talking about. We're recognized to be first in Spain, 5th in Europe, and 24th worldwide, according at least to the QS rankings that keep changing every year. 96% of our students found a job within usually 2 to 3 months. So we're really strong on the career side, and we help them finding their own path. 7% of our students actually in 2001 were able to launch the startup. So that's what I mean also when I talk about entrepreneurship. We have people, we have entrepreneurs coming, we organize competitions, and these entrepreneurs, they come and they give you funding if they believe in your own idea. So they'll make you do a pitch, you present in front of a committee, and if it works, then you'll be able to start working for real on your own ideas. For instance, for people going to Spain, one of the ways to find a house is through Spot a Home, and Spot a Home is a startup made by NIE alumni. But this is just one of many. This is just to mention a very common one that many students use. Sorry for some of the noise, but there's a lot of work around. So in terms of career, since I mentioned the companies, these are just some of the companies that come every year on our campus for fairs, for recruitment, for networking. So from Google, Novartis, JP Morgan, PwC, and many more. We have around 140 companies twice a year coming. Of course, if it's online due to COVID, we can host many more. If it's around 100 and so, it's because space-wise, that's what we can have. The admission process, but of course, very important what you will have to go through. You start with an online application. You can also do it through Common App. I know some people are more familiar with that. We are also on Common App, but otherwise you can just go on our website. You put all your information, name, surname, age, etc., etc. Then there will be an assessment. The assessment is a test with 3 questions that many companies utilize as well. With these 3 questions, you answer to 2 of them orally, and to 1, it will be a written answer. So you have to play with the time. And because you only have a couple of minutes per question. There will be then an admission test that is mandatory only for students who don't have an SAT or an ACT. Otherwise, you can skip this part. And then there will be the interview. The interview will be the very last part. Usually it's more of a friendly interview to understand who you are, who we're talking to, go through your doubts, of course, and go through your path toward the interview and the university. And then within 10 days, usually you have our final decision. So this is how it works. I'd like to leave then space for questions. I thought I put my email here, but I'll give it to you right now. Okay, so it's time for question. Good question. The first one I see is there's a Filipino community at IE. Definitely, yes. So we're actually increasing a lot recruitment from the Philippines. That's because we noticed that many more Filipinos are kind of passionate about Spain because there's some sort of a cultural connection. We have considered that IE has 30 offices in the world. One of them is in Singapore, but for master students, our main target is the Philippines because we have a lot of master students from the Philippines. And for undergraduates, instead, we are increasing more and more, but we definitely have a Filipino community. The first Jollibee has opened in Madrid, and this is not a case. Probably all of you are familiar with Jollibee. So yes, we do have a Filipino community, and it's building up more and more. Does IE offer scholarship and financial aid to international students? Yes, absolutely. Scholarship and fees are the same for everyone, whether you're international or not. How it works is that first you need to be admitted. So once you're admitted and you get a spot, then you can apply for a scholarship. Usually the range goes from 15 to 100%. It's how it works, and what we check on is your grades. Of course, they are important. We check on your CV, and we check on the economical need. So now there are more scholarships that are more dedicated to, there are more merit-based. So we check mainly on grades or the CV, and there are others that are more dedicated on the financial need. Then, of course, if you have all of these elements, you will get the chance to have a bigger scholarship. We had a student actually who's going to start this year who got a 100% scholarship, including housing and living costs. This is a very rare exception, but this is just to let you know that it's a possibility. Is it possible for a student to start their own organization in IE? If you mean with the clubs, for instance, yes. So let's say you are a big crypto fan, let's say, and you notice that there's no crypto club, You can be the founder of a new crypto club at IE and invite all the attendees. You can become the president, and then with the connection, we can help you maybe organize events, invite professionals, etc., etc. So you can do that. Requirement for IELTS, good question. No, there's no requirement unless we see that your level of English is relatively low. Otherwise, we'll check how you speak English within the application, the interview, and the test. So there's no specific requirements for IELTS. Do you offer full ride scholarship? Yes, I just answered that. So it's rare. We have 2 of them, and for full ride, I mean including the living cost. You need to be amazing to get that one because we give 2 per year. We have also some 100% scholarship without the living cost. This will be a little bit more, but still, it's quite rare. You can give it a try though. Undergraduate and master programs offered at IE? Not really. So they're separated, let's say, entities. So you'll finish your undergraduate program, and then if you want, you can do a master. But what we do have instead is we have something like this with the law track. So if you do law at IE and you take the track with the King's College London, for instance, basically you do 3 years at IE and then you do 1 year or 2 years at it. Now I'm not sure, I'll have to check, with King's College London. So you will be graduated with a Bachelor of Law from IE, and you will be graduated with a Master of Law from King's College. And you can do the same with the Northwestern University in the US. So in that sense we do, but at IE only we don't have that. So you finish the undergraduate, if you want to apply for a master and you get into a master, that will be another thing. Another question, what are the classes like in IE? That's a very general question. What are they like? Are from 30 to 50 students per class, depending on how many we have. Quite interactive usually, so lessons are interactive lessons with questions, answers, discussions, a lot of discussions, cases, analyzing cases together, making presentations. So it's quite enjoyable usually to go to class. International environment, of course, again, in class you have students from every corner of the world, and usually friendly professors. So this is more or less how going to class at IE look like. Are international students allowed to take part-time jobs, the internship? Good question. So the first thing is from year 3 is when you start shaping the program. So the programs are for 4 years. Apart from architecture, we will be 5. And the dual degrees are 5 as well. So in the first 2 years, you can do the labs. Absolutely. They will count as part-time kind of internship, which are, in this case, unpaid. From year 3, you can actually have 6-month full-time internship. It can be in Spain, but it can be anywhere in the world. Now, as long as you have the student pass, I think there's no problem to do the internship even in Spain. But for part-time jobs, you have to be careful because there's a limit of hour. And if you're not European, I am not exactly sure on how this works. I think you can do something in the summer, but part-time while studying, it can be a little bit tricky. What some of our students do international just to make some money, let's say, is just maybe they teach English to some of the Spanish families. But otherwise, part-time jobs, well, first of all, are not easy to do because of classes can be quite intense, and second of all, being international, it's not really easy. For the internship, there's no problem. How is the Spanish education system different from the US or other education systems? Well, it's hard to be completely different from every other education system in the world, but I can tell you the US one is more practical, is more hands-on, but there's a lack of theory. So there's a lack, they give you usually less basics and bases in terms of theory and knowledge. IE, especially, we try to work a lot on both. So we want to give you the basis and the knowledge, but we don't want just leave it there because then you're not able to put them into practice. So there's a lot of practical part, working on project, making business plan, making presentation, working on project with other people. So that will be how we teach, which is not just a Spanish education system. This is education system at IE because we're a private university and we work our own way. Around how much will the tuition fee per annum be? So for the single degrees, it's 22.9 thousand euros per year. It will be 25.8 for the dual degrees instead. Free Spanish language classes if I want to learn Spanish. So if you want to learn Spanish, first thing is that if you don't have a minimum level in the first year, the classes are mandatory and they are included in the program. Not because we teach in Spanish, but because, you know, being in Spain, I think it's very important to learn Spanish. It can be a plus. Otherwise, if you just want to take more optional courses, in that case, you will have to pay. Is living in Madrid and Segovia expensive? That depends what's the comparison, the meter of comparison. If you compare it to other big European capitals, absolutely not. Because it's one of the cheapest big European capitals, much more than Paris, much more than Milan, Rome, Amsterdam, London, absolutely. But of course, if you take maybe Manila is cheaper. Segovia is slightly cheaper than Madrid. Instead, to give you a range, a house in Madrid, a shared flat, it will be maybe around 550 euros. In Segovia, you take that 50 off, more or less. That's just for the housing. The route student can take to travel to university. I'm not sure what you mean with the route student can take to travel to the university. Okay, no, maybe I do. It depends where you find a house. So in Segovia, it's very small. So even if you're far, the farthest you can be will be maybe 15 minutes walk, which is no big deal. And we do have dorms, on-campus dorms for Segovia. In Madrid, we don't have that. We don't have on-campus dorms, but we have our own accommodation. So we have IE accommodation, and usually the fastest way to get to university will be by metro. Even if you're in the city center and you want to get to the financial district where the new tower is, maybe it takes you 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. But with the metro in Madrid, you go everywhere. And we also help you in the process of finding a house. Then, next question. I know there's a Spanish citizenship scheme for Filipinos. With living in Spain for 2 years, you can apply for citizenship. I have no idea. Here you really caught me off guard. It's not something I deal with. It will be our student service department, but I can ask. If you heard of it, it could definitely be. But I think if it works, I think that living there because of university would apply as well. So it's something that you potentially can apply for, but I really don't have the details and I don't know how that works. I'm sorry. Specialties of IE in terms of courses. If you mean our main programs, I would say business, definitely it's our flagship. I would say law because we're making it much more competitive. And I would say architecture because of architecture and international relations. These four I would say are the main ones, but we're building much more on other programs like the behavior and social science, for instance, is becoming much more requested. Communication and digital media is becoming much more requested. So these programs are becoming more competitive, and also the data program as well is becoming much more competitive. Will I need to have previous knowledge of speaking Spanish? Not at all, no need. If you have it, good for you. If you don't, no problem. Because again, and everything is taught in English, but still we want you to learn Spanish. So if you don't have any knowledge of Spanish, you will have dedicated classes to learn Spanish. SAT score, good question because I haven't mentioned. So it's not really about getting accepted. The SAT score would replace the IE test, because if you don't have that, you have to take our admission test. If you don't want to take the admission test, then we need a minimum of 1,200 in the SAT. Better if it's slightly above. A very good SAT score also help you usually on a scholarship. Does IE have good engineering course? No, we don't, because we don't have engineering course. The most kind of engineering program that we have is computer science and artificial intelligence, if we can put it under the engineering branch. But other than this, we don't really have engineering course. Also, the applied math could be that is going to come up probably next year, will be in the engineering branch, but engineering per se and pure and mere engineering, we don't have any program as such. Okay, well, I think I answered more or less all of the questions. Again, I don't know how I can put it here, but maybe with Santino can help you with my contact details if they are available. But again, I see much more interest from Filipinos towards Spain, which is fantastic. There's this connection. I know Tagalog words have some Spanish words. I live myself in Manila, so I know Filipinos and I know Manila very well. And I can tell you that the Filipino students enjoy living in Madrid and in Segovia very much.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Andre. I'm sure I can speak for everyone here when I say that we learned a lot about the IE University, and we're definitely going to consider it when we're going to apply abroad. So like, once again to everyone here, if you're interested in staying in touch and learning more about IE University, just go ahead and fill out the interest form. The link is in the chat, and it's also in our camp link tree. So like, and that concludes our session for today, guys. A big thank you once again to our speakers and all our attendees for joining us. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye
So
bye.
the next college on the call will be the Johns Hopkins University. And if you'd like to stay for that, please stay in the Zoom call. It will start 11 o'clock. Thank you all.